The great chamber filled with the sound of clicking claws, humming crystals, and the soft whisper of energy beings discussing the fate of an entire species. 12 different alien races sat around the massive circular table, each representing billions of lives across the galaxy. Director Vexhai floated above his seat, his ethereal form shifting between blue and purple as emotions flickered through his ancient mind. He had lived for 3,000 years and guided the Galactic Council through countless decisions. Today's choice should have been simple. The hologram in the center of the table showed a small blue planet, Earth. Around it, red dots marked human colonies spreading like a disease across space. In just 200 years since first contact, humans had claimed over 50 systems. They built cities on worlds other species called impossible to live on. They turned asteroids into factories and moons into military bases. War Speaker Thakmor clicked his mandibles in frustration. His insect-like body towered over the table as he spoke through the translation device. The humans ignore our laws. They settle in restricted zones. They refuse to follow proper procedures. The crystalline representative from Zephyr chimed in. Agreement, her voice like singing glass. My trade calculations show they will control 30% of galactic commerce within 50 years. This cannot be allowed. Vexhai had watched many species rise and fall. The pattern was always the same. A young race would appear, full of energy and ideas. They would push boundaries and challenge the old ways. The council would guide them, teach them their place in the galaxy's natural order. Some learned. Others had to be corrected. But humans were different. They didn't just refuse to learn their place, they acted like the very concept was funny. When the council sent official warnings, humans sent back messages that their translation computers called memes. Pictures with words that somehow mocked the entire galactic government. Ambassador Kelton from the Granite Confederation spoke, in his slow, grinding voice. I have reviewed their military records. Humans do not fight like civilized beings. They use tactics we have never seen. They win battles they should lose. This was true. 3 months ago, a human patrol ship had defeated an entire Korthak battle group using nothing but clever positioning and what humans called psychological warfare. The Korthak were the galaxy's finest warriors, bred for combat over millions of years. One human ship had convinced them to shoot each other. Their technology advances too fast, added the representative from the Silicon Collective. My people created computers 1,000,000 years ago. Humans invented theirs yesterday and now they surpass ours in many areas. Vexhai nodded slowly. He had studied the human files for decades. Their learning speed was frightening. Give a human any piece of technology, and within months, they would improve it or find new ways to use it. Their scientists worked at a pace that bordered on insanity. The decision is clear, Vexhai announced, his voice carrying the weight of authority. Humans represent a threat to galactic stability. If we allow them to continue, they will disrupt the order that has kept peace for millions of years. The Aquatic Union's representative gurgled from her water tank. What do you propose? Economic sanctions have failed. They simply trade with species outside the council. Military containment is impossible, War Speaker Thakmor admitted reluctantly. Their defensive positions are too strong and they have allies we did not expect. Vexhai had considered all options. Humans had done something no other species managed. They made friends with races the council considered minor or primitive. These allies provided resources, intelligence, and safe havens that made normal pressure tactics useless. There is one option, Vexhai said quietly. Protocol Omega. Silence fell over the chamber. Protocol Omega was the Council's ultimate weapon. Quantum-entangled kill switches planted in every major species technology during their integration period. The Council had used it only 3 times in galactic history, always as a last resort. You speak of species termination, the ethereal, Council member whispered, her energy form flickering with distress. This is not a decision to make lightly. The alternative is watching humans reshape the galaxy in their image, Vexhai replied. Our projections show they will become the dominant power within 2 centuries. Their chaos will destroy everything we have built. The debate lasted for hours. Some argued for other solutions. The trade representatives worried about economic disruption. The military voices pushed for immediate action. But in the end, the mathematics were clear. Humans were growing too fast, learning too quickly, and spreading too far. The vote was close. 7 species in favor, 4 against, 1 abstention. But it was enough. HFY moved to the secure console at the center of the chamber. The quantum kill switches had been in place for decades, hidden inside human technology transferred during the integration process. Power plants, computer systems, ships, weapons, all contained microscopic devices that could be activated remotely. "Are we certain this will work?" asked the Zephyrian representative, her crystalline structure dim with worry. "The switches are quantum entangled with our control systems," HFY explained. "Distance means nothing. The moment I activate them, every major human installation will lose power. Their ships will go dead. Their weapons will fail. Without their technology, they cannot survive in space or on the hostile worlds they have colonized. It would not be pleasant, but it would be quick. Within hours, human civilization would collapse. The survivors would be scattered across a few worlds, unable to communicate or travel. They would no longer pose a threat to anyone." HFY placed his energy form over the activation panel. Protocol Omega is now active. Authorization: Council Director HFY, Authority 7479. Target: human species, all colonies, and installations. The panel glowed red as the signal spread across the galaxy at quantum speeds. In seconds, it would reach every human settlement. Power plants would shut down. Ships would go dark. The age of human expansion was about to end. Confirmation should arrive within 72 hours, HFY announced. Strike fleets are already moving to contain any survivors and begin cleanup operations. The council members began to disperse, returning to their ships and territories. Most seemed relieved that the difficult decision was made. A few still appeared troubled, but they would understand in time. The galaxy would be safer without human chaos. HFY remained in the chamber, watching the red activation light pulse steadily. In 3,000 years of life, he had seen many species rise and fall. The humans had been impressive, he admitted. Their creativity and adaptability were remarkable, but they had pushed too hard, too fast. They had forced the council's hand. Now they would learn, as others had learned before them, that there were some powers in the galaxy that could not be challenged. The old order would remain. Peace would continue. The chaos of human ambition would be nothing but a historical footnote. The light continued to pulse, sending its deadly signal across the stars. Soon the human problem would be solved forever. 3 days had passed since the council pushed the button. HFY floated in his private chamber, waiting for the confirmation signals that would tell him the human threat was ended. The quantum kill switches should have worked instantly. Every major human installation should have gone dark within minutes of activation. But his communication console remained silent. The first status report had been due 12 hours after activation. Strike Fleet Alpha was supposed to confirm the shutdown of Earth's defenses and begin occupation procedures. Fleet Beta should have reported from the Centauri colonies. Fleet Gamma was tasked with the outer human territories. None had reported. HFY tried to push away the small knot of worry forming in his energy matrix. Space was vast, and communication delays were common. Perhaps the fleets were simply being thorough, making sure every human installation was properly secured before sending reports. His door chimed and War Speaker Thakmor entered without waiting for permission. The massive insectoid's movements were sharp and agitated, his mandibles clicking rapidly, a sign of extreme stress among his people. "Director, we have a problem," Thakmor announced, his translator struggling with his rapid speech. "My hive mind cannot process the silence from human space. We should have intelligence by now. Battle reports, casualty counts, something." "Patience, War Speaker," HFY replied, though he felt his own concerns growing. "These operations take time." "Time?" Thakmor's compound eyes flashed with frustration. "My people conquered 16 systems in the time it took your quantum switches to activate. We should have heard something." Before Vexhai could respond, the chamber's communication system activated. The Zephyrian trade minister's crystalline face appeared in the hologram, her usual musical voice now sharp with worry. "Director, I have completed analysis of quantum traffic from human space," she said without preamble. "There has been no communication of any kind from any human territory for 71 hours. No distress signals, no surrender broadcasts, no requests for aid." Vexhai felt his energy form flicker with surprise. "No communications at all?" "None. It is as if human space has become completely empty. My trade networks show all human commercial traffic stopped exactly 73 hours ago, 2 hours before we activated Protocol Omega." The implications hit Vexhai like a physical blow. Human trade had stopped before the Council had even pushed the button. That was impossible unless— "Send immediate orders to all strike fleets," Vexhai commanded. "Deploy reconnaissance probes to all major human systems. I want detailed scans of every planet, station, and ship." The next 12 hours brought a steady stream of impossible reports. The reconnaissance probes found human installations intact but empty. Cities stood undamaged but lifeless. Space stations floated in perfect condition with no crew aboard. Massive industrial facilities sat idle, their machines silent but undamaged. Most disturbing of all, there were no bodies. Ambassador Kelton from the Granite Confederation called an emergency session. His stone-like face showed more emotion than Vexhai had seen in centuries of dealing with his people. "The outer colonies are evacuated," Kelton reported in his grinding voice. "Every single human settlement we have scanned shows signs of organized withdrawal. They took everything: people, equipment, even their dead from the graveyards." "That is impossible," the Aquatic Union representative gurgled from her tank. "Our intelligence networks would have detected such massive population movements." But the evidence kept mounting. Probe after probe returned the same data. Human space was empty, but not because of the Council's weapons. The humans had left voluntarily, taking everything of value with them. The Silicon Collective's representative processed the data at computer speeds, his mechanical voice flat with disbelief. "Analysis confirms. The human evacuation was completed. Before our activation of Protocol Omega, the last human signatures disappeared from our sensors 68 hours ago." Vexhai stared at the holographic displays showing empty human worlds. His 3,000 years of experience told him this was impossible. You could not evacuate billions of people across dozens of star systems without someone noticing. The logistics alone would require years of planning and coordination. "How did they know?" he whispered. War Speaker Thakmor's mandibles clicked, in a pattern that meant deep thought among his people. "The evacuation patterns are too perfect, too organized. This was not a panic response to a detected threat. This was planned long in advance." The terrible truth began to form in Vexhai's mind. The humans had known about Protocol Omega. They had known the Council would eventually move against them. More importantly, they had been ready for it. "Director," the ethereal Council member spoke, her energy form pulsing with fear. "If the humans knew about our plans, if they evacuated before we acted, then they were never really gone." Vexhai finished the thought. "They left because they chose to leave, not because we forced them." The implications were staggering. Protocol Omega was the Council's most closely guarded secret. The quantum kill switches were known only to the highest levels of government. The very existence of the program was classified beyond top secret, yet somehow the humans had not only learned about it, but had prepared countermeasures. They had evacuated their entire civilization before the Council even voted. "Sir," a technician's voice came through the communication system. "We are receiving a transmission from the former human territory. It appears to be a recorded message, broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it through," Vexhai ordered. The chamber filled with the image of a human female, middle-aged by their standards, wearing what appeared to be a simple military uniform. She sat calmly at a desk, her hands folded, her expression neither angry nor afraid. When she spoke, her voice was steady and conversational. "Greetings, members of the Galactic Council. By the time you see this message, you will have discovered that we are no longer in the territories you knew as human space. Do not be alarmed. This was always our intention. The council members looked at each other in stunned silence. The human continued speaking as if she were discussing weather conditions. We have been aware of Protocol Omega for some time now. We understand your concerns about our expansion and our methods. We respect your right to govern your territories as you see fit. Therefore, we have chosen to remove ourselves from your sphere of influence. Vexhai felt his energy matrix fluctuate wildly. The human spoke as if the evacuation of entire star systems was a simple matter of courtesy. We leave behind no weapons, no traps, no threats. The installations we built are yours to use or destroy as you wish. We ask only that you remember this moment and consider whether your assumptions about human nature were entirely accurate. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in absolute silence. Outside, the galaxy continued as it had for millions of years. But inside the chamber, 12 of the most powerful species in known space grappled with a disturbing new reality. The humans were gone, but not because the council had forced them to leave. They had chosen to go. Director Vexhai had not left his chamber in 6 days. The investigation teams were sending reports every hour, and each one made the situation worse. The humans had not simply vanished. They had planned their departure with a precision that made the council's greatest strategic minds look like children playing war games. The first breakthrough came from the forensics team examining Earth's evacuation. Commander Zilt of the Silicon Collective stood before Vexhai's desk, her mechanical form somehow managing to convey embarrassment despite lacking organic expressions. Director, we have completed our analysis of the human homeworld, she reported. The evacuation was not recent. Evidence suggests it began over 8 months ago. 8 months? Vexhai's energy form flickered with shock. That is impossible. Our intelligence showed normal human activity until days before Protocol Omega. The humans used what they called skeleton crews to maintain the appearance of normal operations, Zilt explained. A few thousand people running automated systems that would normally require millions of workers. They kept up all normal communications, maintained regular schedules, even continued their cultural broadcasts and entertainment programs. The scope of the deception was staggering. The humans had somehow convinced the entire galaxy that their civilization was functioning normally, while secretly moving billions of people to unknown locations. How did they transport so many people without us detecting the ships? Vexhai asked. That is where it gets worse, Director. We found evidence that the evacuation transports use technology we do not understand. Our sensors detected no unusual traffic because the ships were invisible to our detection methods. Before Vexhai could process this information fully, War Speaker Thakmor burst into the chamber. The normally composed warrior was clicking his mandibles in patterns that indicated extreme agitation. Director, you must see this immediately, Thakmor announced, activating a portable hologram projector. We found something in the abandoned human military base on Kepler 442b. The hologram showed what appeared to be a standard human computer terminal. But when Thakmor activated the playback, the screen displayed classified council documents, meeting notes, strategic plans, personnel files, and detailed intelligence reports on every major species in the galaxy. These files are from our most secure databases, Thakmor said, his voice barely controlled. Some of them are from meetings that happened only weeks ago. The humans have been inside our networks for years. Vexhai stared at the display in growing horror. The documents included detailed psychological profiles of every council member, complete battle plans for dozens of military operations, and economic data that was supposed to be known only to the highest levels of government. Look at this, Thakmor continued, changing the display. They have been monitoring our communications for decades. Every secret meeting, every private conversation, every classified decision, the humans recorded all of it. The implications were beyond devastating. The council had operated under the assumption that their communications were secure, their plans were secret, and their intelligence networks were superior. Now they learned that the humans had been listening to everything, reading their most classified documents and watching their every move. Sir, Commander Zilt interrupted. There is more. We found similar computer terminals at every major human installation. Each one contains complete intelligence files on the local council forces. They knew exactly where our ships were positioned, what weapons we carried, and what our battle plans would be. Vexhai felt his energy matrix destabilize as the full scope of human intelligence capabilities became clear. They had not simply infiltrated council networks. They had turned the entire galactic intelligence apparatus into their personal information gathering system. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "Our security systems are millions of years old. They have protected us against every threat." The answer came from an unexpected source. The chamber's communication system activated, and the face of Admiral Kress from the Ethereal Council appeared. Her normally calm expression was replaced by something approaching panic. "Director Vexhai, we have discovered something that changes everything," she announced. "We found humans." "Found them? Where?" "Everywhere," Kress replied grimly. "We have identified human infiltrators in our military academies, research facilities, trade stations, and government offices across dozens of systems. They have been living among us for years, and we never knew." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humans had not just been spying on the council from a distance. They had people embedded throughout galactic society. "Show me," Vexhai commanded. Kress activated her own hologram display showing identification files for dozens of individuals. Each photo showed what appeared to be a normal member of various alien species: Zephyrian traders, Korthak warriors, ethereal diplomats, Silicon collective technicians. "These are all humans using advanced disguise technology," Kress explained. "The individual identified as Trade Supervisor Zental has been working in our commercial oversight department for 6 years. Research Assistant Tylum has been part of our weapons development team for 4 years. Diplomatic Aide Velshah has been present at classified strategy meetings for over 2 years." Vexhai studied the images, trying to understand how such deception was possible. The disguises were perfect, not just visual but apparently biological. These humans had somehow altered themselves to pass medical scans, genetic tests, and even psychic probes. "How many?" he asked quietly. "We do not know. Our current estimates suggest there may be hundreds of humans embedded throughout council space, possibly thousands." The full picture began to form in Vexhai's mind. The humans had not been passive subjects waiting to be governed by the council. They had been active participants in galactic society from the beginning, placing their people in key positions, gathering intelligence, and preparing for the day when the council would move against them. They knew about Protocol Omega because they were in the room when we developed it, Vexhai realized. They watched us debate their fate. They probably helped write some of our intelligence reports about their own activities. Commander Zilt's mechanical voice cut through the silence. "Director, there is one more thing. We found a message specifically addressed to you in the Earth archives." Vexhai nodded grimly. "Play it." The hologram showed the same human woman from the previous transmission, but this time she was standing in what appeared to be a vast ship's bridge. Behind her, thousands of humans worked at stations that hummed with unfamiliar technology. "Director Vexhai," she began. "You are wondering how we knew about your plans. The answer is simple. We helped you make them. For over 50 years, humans have been part of your intelligence services, your military planning committees, and your strategic analysis teams. We did not steal your secrets. You gave them to us." Vexhai's energy form began to pulse erratically as the human continued. "We want you to understand that we bear no ill will toward the Council or its member species. You acted according to your nature and your understanding of galactic politics. But we acted according to our nature as well. We prepared for every possibility, including this one." The camera pulled back to show more of the ship's bridge. The scale was enormous, easily the size of a small city, filled with technology that looked decades ahead of anything in council space. "We have removed ourselves from your territory, but we have not gone far. We are watching, we are learning, and we are building something new. Consider this a friendly goodbye, not a declaration of war. The transmission ended, leaving the council leadership to contemplate their new reality. They had not destroyed the human threat. They had revealed the full extent of their own vulnerability. The humans were still out there, somewhere beyond the reach of council sensors, with technology and intelligence capabilities that made their former estimates look laughably inadequate. For the first time in 3,000 years, Director Vexhai felt truly afraid. The emergency council session had been running for 18 hours straight. Representatives from all 12 major species sat around the table, but the usual order and dignity of their meetings had collapsed into something approaching chaos. Reports kept coming in from across the galaxy, and each one was worse than the last. Director Vexhai floated at the head of the table, his energy form dim with exhaustion. In 3,000 years of existence, he had never faced a crisis like this. The humans were gone, but their absence was causing more problems than their presence ever had. War Speaker Thakmor spoke first, his mandibles clicking with barely controlled rage. 17 of my best intelligence officers have revealed themselves as human agents in the past 48 hours. 17. They have been feeding information to the humans for years while we trusted them with our most sensitive operations. The situation is the same across all council territories, Admiral Kress reported, her ethereal form flickering with distress. Human agents are identifying themselves voluntarily. They are not running or hiding. They simply appear at council facilities and announce their true nature. The Zephyrian Trade Minister's crystalline structure was cracked with stress patterns. The economic implications are devastating. 30% of our critical infrastructure was designed or modified by human consultants. We assumed they were allied species working under contract, but now we discover they were humans all along. Commander Zilt of the Silicon Collective displayed a holographic chart showing trade disruptions across the galaxy. Human-designed improvements to our computer networks have begun shutting down systematically. They apparently included hidden, shutdown codes that activate when triggered remotely. This was the pattern emerging everywhere. For decades, humans had been deeply integrated into galactic society, not as conquered subjects or junior partners, but as equals who had been invited to help improve systems throughout council space. Now those improvements were failing in coordinated fashion. They are not attacking us, observed Ambassador Kelton in his grinding stone voice. The shutdowns are clean, designed to prevent damage rather than cause it. But the message is clear. They could have destroyed our infrastructure at any time. Vexhai studied the reports flowing across his display. Human agents were surrendering themselves at council facilities across dozens of systems. Not fleeing, not fighting, just calmly presenting themselves and offering full cooperation with investigations. What do they want? Asked the Aquatic Union representative from her water tank. Why reveal themselves now? The answer came in the form of a priority transmission from the outer territories. Captain Velshan of the Korthak border fleet appeared in the chamber's hologram display, her compound eyes wide with something between fear and amazement. Director, you need to see this immediately, she announced. We have detected massive energy signatures at the edge of charted space. The humans are building something. Show me, Vexhai commanded. The hologram changed to display long-range sensor data from the galactic rim. At first, the readings looked like normal background radiation. But as the computer enhanced the image, structures began to appear. Massive, constructions that dwarfed anything in council space. The energy output is beyond our measurement capabilities, Captain Velshan reported. Whatever they are building requires more power than most star systems produce. Our best estimates suggest construction began immediately after they evacuated from our territories. War Speaker Thakmor leaned forward, studying the display with military eyes. Those are not weapons. The energy patterns are all wrong for military applications. Then what are they? Vexhai asked. Before anyone could answer, the chamber's communication system activated with an incoming priority message. The display showed the familiar face of the human woman who had been speaking for her people, but now she was clearly aboard one of the massive constructions visible on the sensor displays. Members of the Galactic Council, she began in her calm conversational tone. I am Admiral Chen of the Human Exodus Fleet. I believe you have questions about our current activities. The council chamber fell silent. This was the first direct communication from human leadership since the evacuation began. We want you to understand that our withdrawal from your space was not motivated by fear or hostility, Admiral Chen continued. We left because we could see where current galactic politics were leading, and we chose to build something different rather than try to change your existing system. The camera pulled back to show more of the human construction. It was clearly a space station, but built on a scale that made Council starbases look like shuttlecraft. The design was unlike anything in galactic databases, organic curves mixed with crystalline structures and energy fields that seemed to bend space itself. You have been wondering about the capabilities you have discovered among our people, Chen said. The truth is, we have been hiding our real technological level since first contact. We thought it would be better to appear less advanced than we were to avoid causing fear or triggering the exact response we eventually received anyway. Vexhai felt his energy matrix pulse with shock. The humans had been concealing their true abilities from the beginning, deliberately appearing weaker than they were. Our agents embedded throughout Council space were never spies in the traditional sense, Chen explained. They were observers and helpers, people who genuinely wanted to contribute to galactic society while keeping their human identity hidden. Many of them have lived their entire adult lives as adopted members of your species. The implications were staggering. The humans who had revealed themselves were not infiltrators sent to gather intelligence. They were people who had chosen to live as aliens, helping to improve systems and solve problems while hiding their true nature. But why? Vexhai found himself asking aloud, though he knew she could not hear him. As if reading his thoughts, Admiral Chen continued. We know you are wondering why we went to such lengths to hide among you. The answer is that we were trying to prove something, that different species could work together, that diversity of thought and approach makes everyone stronger, that cooperation is better than conquest. The camera shifted to show more of the human construction. Other ships were visible now. Not warships, but vessels of clearly alien design. Some bore the markings of species that the Council considered primitive or irrelevant. We were not the only ones who disagreed with Council policies, Chen said. Over the years, we made contact with many species that your government classified as minor or developing. We learned that they had valuable contributions to make, if given the opportunity. War Speaker Thakmore's mandibles clicked in recognition. The allies. The humans found allies among the species we ignored. Together we are building something new, Chen continued. Not an empire or a conquest fleet, but a different model for galactic civilization. One based on voluntary cooperation rather than enforced hierarchy. One where a species' value is measured by what they contribute, not how long they have been spacefaring. The display showed more alien ships arriving at the human construction site. Species that the Council barely acknowledged were working alongside humans, sharing technology and expertise. We want to make one thing perfectly clear, Admiral Chen said, her tone becoming more serious. We could have prevented Protocol Omega from the beginning. We could have destroyed your kill switches before you activated them. We could have crippled your infrastructure and left your civilizations in chaos. We chose not to. The chamber filled with uncomfortable silence as the full implications of that statement sank in. The humans had allowed the Council to attempt genocide against them, knowing it would fail, because they wanted to make a point about the nature of power. We hope you will remember this when you decide how to respond to our departure, Chen concluded. We are not your enemies, but we are no longer your subjects either. Think carefully about what happens next. The transmission ended, leaving the Council to contemplate a new reality. The humans had not been defeated or driven away. They had chosen to leave and build something better elsewhere. And they had taken with them many of the species that the Council had ignored or dismissed. For the first time in galactic history, the old order faced a real alternative. And that alternative was being built by the species they had tried to destroy. 6 months had passed since the humans disappeared from Council space, and Director Vexhai barely recognized the galaxy he had helped govern for 3 millennia. He floated in his private chamber, reading reports that painted a picture of systematic collapse spreading across what had once been the most stable civilization in galactic history. The first wave of problems had been immediate. Human-designed improvements to critical systems began failing simultaneously across dozens of worlds. Power grids went down. Communication networks developed mysterious gaps. Transportation hubs found their scheduling computers locked in diagnostic loops that no council technician could break. But these were clean shutdowns designed to prevent damage rather than cause catastrophe. The humans had built failure safes into their improvements, ensuring that when their systems stopped working, they would not take council infrastructure down with them. Even in departure, they had been careful not to harm innocent populations. The second wave was worse. The galactic economy, more dependent on human innovation than anyone had realized, began to contract. Trade routes that had been optimized by human consultants became inefficient overnight. Manufacturing processes improved by human engineers lost their competitive advantages. Financial systems that used human-designed algorithms found themselves unable to process transactions properly. The Zephyrian trade minister had resigned in disgrace when it was discovered that 40% of her species' economic growth over the past 50 years had come from human innovations. The Silicon Collective's industrial output had dropped by 30% when their human-designed manufacturing systems shut down. But it was the third wave that truly frightened HFY. Species throughout council space were asking uncomfortable questions about the old galactic order. If the humans had been so advanced, why had the council tried to destroy them? If human innovations had been improving everyone's lives, why had their presence been considered a threat? The latest intelligence report lay open on his desk, its contents more disturbing than any military defeat. 12 minor species had formally requested to leave council space, following the human example. They wanted to join what humans were calling the Cooperative Commonwealth, the new civilization being built at the galaxy's edge. War Speaker Thakmor entered without announcement, his usual military bearing replaced by something approaching defeat. His mandibles clicked slowly, a sign of deep thought among his people. "Director, we have received the formal request from the Altani Republic," he announced. "They want to withdraw from council authority and join the Human Alliance." HFY was not surprised. The Altani had been classified as a minor species for over 1,000 years, despite having developed impressive biotechnology and sustainable resource management. The council had never given them full representation, considering them too young and inexperienced for major decisions. That makes 15 species in the past month, HFY noted, all requesting permission to leave. "It gets worse," Thakmor continued. 3 of our member species are considering similar requests. The Crystalline Confederation has begun internal debates about whether council membership is still beneficial. This was the nightmare scenario. The council's authority had always been based on the idea that membership provided benefits that outweighed the restrictions. Now, with an alternative available, that assumption was being challenged. The Chamber's communication system activated, displaying an incoming message from Admiral Chen of the Human Exodus Fleet. HFY had learned to dread these communications, as they always contained information that made the situation worse. "Director HFY," Chen began in her maddeningly calm tone, "I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to update you on our progress and extend an invitation that I hope you will consider seriously." The display showed the human construction at the galactic rim, but it had grown enormously since the last transmission. What had been a single massive station was now a network of interconnected structures that sprawled across multiple star systems. "The Yaldor Cooperative Commonwealth now includes 47 different species," Chen announced. "We have established trade networks, shared research initiatives, and joint colonization projects. Most importantly, we have created a system of government where every species has a voice proportional to their contributions, not their age or military power." HFY studied the display, trying to comprehend the scale of what the humans had accomplished. In 6 months, they had built a civilization that rivaled the Council's greatest achievements. Ships moved between the construction sites carrying members of dozens of species, many of whom the Council had never considered worth serious attention. "We want to make something clear," Chen continued. "This is not a challenge to Council authority within your existing territories. We have no intention of invading or conquering anyone. We are simply offering an alternative for those who want something different. The camera focused on Chen's face, and Vexhai was struck by her expression. There was no anger, no triumph, no desire for revenge. She looked like someone discussing routine business arrangements. However, we cannot ignore the requests we are receiving from species throughout your space. Many have asked to join our Commonwealth. We have decided to accept these requests, with the understanding that departure from Council space must be voluntary and peaceful. This was the diplomatic equivalent of a death sentence for the old order. If species could simply choose to leave and join the humans, the Council's membership would eventually consist only of those too weak to survive independently, or too committed to the old ways to consider alternatives. We are therefore extending a formal invitation to the Galactic Council itself, Chen announced, not to surrender or submit, but to join us as equals in building something new. Your experience and wisdom would be valuable additions to our Commonwealth. Vexhai's energy matrix fluctuated with shock. The humans were not trying to destroy the Council. They were offering to absorb it peacefully, to make it part of their new system. We know this is a difficult decision, Chen acknowledged. You have governed the galaxy for millions of years. You have brought peace and stability to countless worlds, but the galaxy is changing and new approaches are needed for new challenges. The display showed more of the human construction, focusing on areas where Council species were clearly working, alongside humans and their other allies. Korthak warriors trained with human soldiers. Zephyrian engineers collaborated with human scientists. Even ethereals worked at some of the research stations. These are your people, Chen pointed out. Council citizens who have chosen to join us not as refugees or defectors, but as builders of something better. They have not abandoned their heritage or their values. They have simply found a place where those values can be expressed more fully. The transmission showed detailed technical specifications for human technology, economic models for their trade systems, and social structures for their government. It was a complete blueprint for how the Commonwealth operated, offered freely to their former enemies. We are sharing all of this information because we want you to make an informed decision, Chen explained. We are not asking you to trust us blindly. We are asking you to examine what we have built and decide for yourselves whether it represents an improvement over current galactic governance. The chamber fell silent as the technical data scrolled across the displays. Vexhai had expected the humans to conceal their methods to maintain advantages through secrecy. Instead, they were offering complete transparency. The choice is yours, Chen concluded. You can continue governing your remaining territories under the current system. You can attempt to compete with our Commonwealth using your existing methods, or you can join us in building something new. The transmission ended with coordinates for the human construction sites and an open invitation for Council representatives to visit and examine the Commonwealth firsthand. Vexhai floated in silence, contemplating the end of everything he had known. The old galactic order was dying not through conquest or revolution, but through obsolescence. The humans had not destroyed the Council system. They had simply built something better and invited everyone to join them. For the first time in his long existence, Vexhai found himself wondering if the humans had been right all along. Perhaps the galaxy did need something new. Perhaps the old ways of hierarchy and control were no longer adequate for the challenges ahead. He activated his personal communication system and began composing a message to the human Commonwealth. It was time to see what they had really built, out there at the edge of space. It was time to consider whether 3,000 years of galactic governance had prepared him for the most important decision of his life. The age of the Galactic Council was ending, but perhaps, if he was wise enough to recognize it, the age of something better was just beginning.